Hi, welcome to this video on data validation and restrictions part 1. In this video, we're going to look at how to create a drop-down list from our data, as well as how to restrict the length or number of characters that can be entered into a cell. Now we have this hypothetical data, and in front of name, we are supposed to fill this form and type our names. But let's restrict the length of characters that can enter into that place to say 15 or 14. Let's make it 14. That means, remember in the earlier videos we actually said that the number of characters that can go into one cell is 32,000. So we are restricting this to only 15 for the purpose of this particular exercise. So now when we enter data that are more than 15, the system is going to prompt us, telling us we've made error, we've contravened the requirement of that cell. Now what you do is put your cursor on the cell you want to restrict the number of characters. Click on Data tab. We've seen this tab a lot of time. Go to the right and you see Data Tools group. On top of that, you will see Data Validation icon. Click on the Data Validation icon and take that again. Now you will see these three headings. I'm going to explain these three headings. By default, it will take you to Setting. Now, under Setting, you will see Any Value, meaning the cell that you are has been defaulted to accommodate any value. But this time we just don't want any value. We are trying to restrict it. Now you see a lot of restrictions that can be done here. Now we are particular about the length of the characters that can be in that cell. So we select text length. Having selected text length, we're saying we don't want more than 15. So we adjust this place. If we don't want more than 15, we'll say we want less than or equal to. So I select this. It's going to ask us for a maximum number, and we type 15, 1, 5. Now you press OK. Now by the time you take OK, you will have restricted the number of characters in that cell to 15. Now I will go front and back until we do the full explanation. Now I've restricted this. If I type, let me type my name. My name is Daniel, so I'm going to type my full name. My middle name is Karo, and my last name is Ezuzu, so I'm going to type this. Now let me take it in lowercase. If we count this plus the spaces, it's certainly going to be more than 15, which means we have contravened the cell requirement. If I press my enter key, look at what it's going to tell us. You can't move forward. The value doesn't match the data validation restriction defined for the cell. Now you have here retry, cancel, or help, which means you cannot move forward until you meet the requirement of this cell. Now you see this sign, which is equivalent to the stop when you're driving along the road on the street. This is the stop order. Now in Microsoft Excel, this is also a stop order. We're going to see some two other restrictions. Now this is the most restrictive, saying that you cannot move forward until you contravene. We'll see some other two types of restrictions where you can actually contravene and the system still allow you to move forward. So let's go back. Like I said, we're going to be going front and back and move to the next one, which is the input message. Now I have the input message. Let me move straight to the error alert first. This is the error alert, and you see this is the sign we saw. You see yes, stop order, and I define this as a stop order, saying that you cannot move forward on this form until you comply with the requirement of this cell. But if we select this, you see two other styles, which is the warning and the information. Both of these will actually inform you that you've contravened the requirement of the cell, but if you so wish, you can still move forward. So let's select warning. The moment select warning, the sign changes, and I take OK. Now let me enter same name, which was disallowed, Daniel, and my middle name, Karo, and my last name. Now if I press enter now, it's also informing me that this value doesn't match the data validation restriction defined for the cell, but it's asking me, do you still want to continue? Now if I select yes, it allows me to move on. The earlier one, the stop order, did not give me this privilege, so I can select yes here, and you see I can actually move forward. Now that's how to restrict. Either you want absolute restriction, in which case you select the stop order, or you want a restriction where you can actually move forward, having been informed. But let's assume you are working and you contravene a cell requirement. there is nothing in this cell that tells us what we've done wrong. So if you're working, it's appropriate sometimes for you to indicate what should be the appropriate thing. So if you get to the input message here, let's come to this place and type maximum or something like this, max 15 characters. Now we are ticked here saying this should show on the input message when the cell is selected. So if I click OK here, you notice each time, let me take that name off, each time I get to that cell, it's telling me that the maximum characters here should be 15 characters. That means I'm being guided here using the input message. Now this is not a comment, this is an input message. So that's how to restrict characters that can be entered into a cell. Now the next thing we're going to move to is creating a drop down. Now a drop down is very common when you fill some forms online where you are not required to type so much. You create drop down to select the items that concerns you. Now the first thing you do when you create a drop down is first create the data, gather the data. Now for schools here, if you go to this next list, I have gathered the data here. Now I've used all universities, Nigerian university, because I'm running this training from Nigeria. So the universities are selected here as well as the state. They are all Nigerian related. So I'm going back here and I'm going to create a list here where I can actually select a drop down and pick the one that concerns me. So I'm going back to the data validation, and this time instead of selecting that, I'm going to take list because I want a list to be there. Now the moment I click on list, this place open asking me where is the source of that list. Already I've gathered my information, so I go straight to that list and I select the whole of this. Now the moment I select this, you will see the $ making that list to be a fixed range. Now I take OK. When you select OK, it goes back and you see a little drop down here. When you select that drop down, you will see the list of all available schools. So you can actually select the university that concerns you. Now the same thing I want to do for sex. Now for sex is male or female. Now I have it here also in this list. I have sex here, male or female. So I'm going back to that drop down list and I'm going to select my data validation and I pick on list. Now I can actually go and pick the sex from the other list, but because it's just female and male, I can manually type it, F for female, take a comma, M for male. Now I can, it's just only 2 items, I don't need to go and select, and I click OK. Now if I click on this, you see I can actually select the one that is relevant to me. Now for state of origin, the same thing, I click this and now select list because I'm actually looking for a list there, and I go straight to where I have my data. I go straight to state of origin, highlight the whole of that, and I click OK. Now that's how to create a drop down as well as how to restrict cell data, and I can pick any particular state. Okay. Fine, now I've entered restriction here. This is maximum of 15 characters. I've also created drop down. That's all we have for this particular lecture part 1 of it. In part 2, we'll see more of what data validation and restriction can do. Thank you very much and bye-bye.